I'm happiest in the saddle.
A fellow sportsman.
I am an FBI agent!
Great Scott!
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I'm Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And it's the end of the year. It's nearly Christmas, or maybe it's already passed. I don't know when you're listening to this. But like every other year, George and I have decided to give you a quick review of the year 2022. So, George, what can people expect us to cover? It's just to look back at the year we've just had, right?
Yeah, so I think we were chatting that it's going to cover both streaming and cinema. It's still been a funny one for cinema. I think we're still in that cinema, still in that COVID recovery phase. So we're getting drip fed films that had been in production for a while, but then there's been a lot on streaming as well. There's been a lot of good stuff and some meh stuff on the many streaming services as well. So it's going to be a mix of blockbusters and what we've been watching on the telly box.
Yeah, so we're going to cover both. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what it's like are you motivated to go to the cinema, or are you just going to wait for it to go on streaming? I don't think we're going to do a top 10 or anything. I don't think that would be fair. It's not really a typical year. So should we try and go through this chronologically, George? Would that be?
Well, what we could do, we could start with, there's going to be the Marvel Phase 4 stuff. And I know you haven't seen most of that, so I can do a roundup of that. Then there's Star Wars, because we had the Book of Boba Fett that start at the start of the year, then Obi-Wan, and then obviously most recently Andor. So we could maybe do Marvel, Star Wars, and then anything else after that. Does that make sense?
Sounds good. Okay. Well, I still remember Boba Fett like it was yesterday. In fact, it wasn't. It was the year before. It was 2021, because this dropped 29th December. Is that what you're telling me? Yeah. So, and I mean, you can go into this and tell me what you thought, but for me, it's interesting. This will come up when we talk about probably Obi-Wan and Andor, but a slow starter, because they're like, we don't want to, spend our load too early on. But I was very disappointed with the first half of this series, and it only got going when a certain character turned up. What did you think? I
thought it was, a big disappointment, all in, really, that Boba Fett's such an iconic, cool character, and they turned him into like a bit of a wuss, effectively. They stripped away all that sort of mythos, and they had all this thing with him being saved by the Sand People and all these flashbacks in a Bacta tank, and it was just so drawn out and dull, and some laughable sort of action with the mods and stuff like that. And I just felt like when I saw the teaser trailer for it, and it was talking about him like with the 5 families on Tatooine, I was thinking, this could be awesome. This could be, proper Godfather in space gangster drama. And they completely botched it. And it's a shame, because I think Robert Rodriguez was behind a lot of it, and he's done some great work on The Mandalorian, and he's a great action director. As we know, he can be a great action director. But I just found it a bit of a bloated mess, all be told. As you say, the best parts of it were the episodes that didn't even feature Boba Fett. It was more like Mandalorian 2.5.
Says it all, really. I think they were, that expression, trying to run before you could walk. That's what this is. And the walking part is Mandalorian, because that was they tried to do stuff that was out of the ordinary. They did different stuff we've talked about on other episodes, about the crazy stuff they did with the cameras. They were like, this is sacred ground. Let's not screw this up. Let's make it episodic. And what I loved about Mandalorian was this week's monster aspect of it, and they did it so well, and it reminded me of TV that I'd forgotten about from years gone by.
Let's, getting back to basics, he's a new character. Whereas I say Boba Fett, there's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of, people are used to seeing him as a badass. And I just didn't feel like fleshing out his story and making him sympathetic. There's different ways they could have done it that could have made him a compelling character. He could have been really ruthless, as I say, like a mob boss type thing. You know, if you think, look at Breaking Bad. I know neither of us seen it, but there's The Sopranos. There's lots of compelling villains that you want to watch more of, and I just feel they could have done that, but they didn't. So I think
I'd go one stage further. I'd say it was completely unnecessary. I think he added nothing, and he destroyed the
dullest person in his own show.
No, but I mean, it was completely unnecessary. He ruined the character. He added nothing. And in fact, it was a bit of a gut punch to The Mandalorian, because it's funny that, you could probably tell me this, but they'd already shot everything. But like, everyone was so disappointed with the first 5 episodes. And then Mandalorian turns up like, oh, thank God, and it was good and it was great. And it's like, why did they waste their time? And it's like, if they were going to, it was just such a waste, such a waste of Boba Fett, such a waste of time. It's like, they should have just given us a Mandalorian, and they could have introduced him slowly. But I don't know who made the decision, but whoever you are at Disney, you didn't get it right. Like, for the obscene amount of money you paid, you made a very big misstep. So should we just keep it on Star Wars? Do you want to just go talk about Obi-Wan, which was also a slow starter, but I think it's fair to say a slow burn for me?
Yeah, again, I think there's too much fan expectation on Obi-Wan. I think it was a bit of a bloated mess. I think there was some episodes that were stronger than others. It almost felt like one boring episode, one exciting episode. Great to see Ewan McGregor back. Great to see Hayden Christensen back, in a small part. But I felt they could have easily done it as a little movie, as a 2-hour film. I think they could have covered what they needed to, and I think it was just stretched out. Didn't need to be.
It's weird. I think, just to talk about Star Wars in general, because I think we'll keep coming back to this when we'll talk about Andor as well. It's amazing. All that stinks to me is there's so many people involved. Like, if we look at what they've generated recently, like if you look at The Force Awakens and the other 2 films that followed that, and that they've done Rogue One, and that they've done The Mandalorian, that they've done this, it's like, it just, like, from a business point of view, like if you were like, say, Apple or a Tesla or a car manufacturer or airplane, it's like, you've got a product that works. It's just weird that you can have so much success and then go and make such a mistake. It's strange, because they've got so much money, they've got so much coverage, they've won the most number of subscribers in the last 3 years. If you look across the dial, it's been Netflix have dropped, Amazon steady, Disney have peaked. They've gone and they've got more content than anybody else. But it's staggering to see how something as precious as Star Wars, that we could get Rogue One, that we could get The Force Awakens, but we can also get The Rise of Skywalker, that we can also get Boba Fett, that we can get these and Han Solo, these subpar, terribly just unfinished, just rushed. They just seem rushed, unfinished, and cash grabs. It's funny, because the Star Wars legacy will continue, because it's just weird that Mando is because they've got enough that is delivering, and that obviously their main target is kids. It's just funny to sit there on the fence and just like, what are you doing? Where's the strategy? Where is doesn't seem to be a strategy, or am I just because I'm not an artist, am I misunderstanding what art takes? The fact that different directors come with different visions, some of it works, some of it doesn't. It just seems weird that because you're going to talk about Marvel in a minute, let's talk about how consistent they've been. They've either been great or meh. They've never really been bad.
Yeah.
And I think Marvel have followed a strategy, whereas Star Wars has been up and down.
I think with Star Wars, with definitely, ironically, with both Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, I think it was all down to IP, recognizable IP, because they both started out as originally as projects as being solo movies. To go back to,
I remember seeing the artwork.
Yeah, you're seeing the logo.
There was a Yoda. There was a Yoda one as well.
Yeah, so there was
This is pre-COVID. This was pre-COVID.
Well, this was pre-Disney Plus. So there was going to be, obviously we had Rogue One, we had Solo, but Solo and Last Jedi were released really close to each other. Last Jedi really split audiences, and I think was made a lot of money, but not as much money as Force Awakens. Solo came out relatively soon after, and I think people had Star Wars fatigue and felt a bit bummed, burnt out. And after that, they were like, right, we're putting a pause on anything that's not an episode, the Skywalker films. And they shelved it. So they shelved Boba Fett film, they shelved an Obi-Wan film. And then they're like, oh, well, we've now got Disney Plus. We can turn this into more content. We can turn it into a series.
Do anything. No, you can't.
And I don't think, you could have made, I say, an interesting mini series with Boba Fett. You could have just turned it into a spin-off film for Obi-Wan and put it exclusively on Disney Plus. But let's get into Andor, because Andor feels like the most refreshing thing that Star Wars have done, or Disney have done with Star Wars since The Force Awakens, since Rogue One. It feels like Star Wars for grown-ups.
Yeah, and I think I agree with what I saw online. They're like original trilogy, Rogue One, and then Andor. In terms of quality, and then everything else is after that. It's like, it's amazing how strong Andor has been thinking. So I think, like you, I've read Star Wars for Adults. I'm like, there's enough action, but it's like, this isn't about action. This is about fear, empire, control. It's about fascism. It's about, it's about rebellion. It's good. I think, and it's not even a complaint. I just think that poor Cassian Andor, you should get an Emmy for staring at the camera, and I feel sorry he didn't get more lines or better. I think when I watch his performance in that show, I think the show is great and I love everything about it. I think his performance is subpar. I think they didn't get. There's moments where he's literally looking at the camera for 45 seconds, and the camera's going here, it's going there, it's going back to him. Says nothing, does nothing. No facial expression. And you could argue and say that's him. It's like, no, that's not what actors do. They're supposed to demonstrate what's, even if they're not saying anything, they're supposed to change the what do you know what I mean? And it just seemed, whereas I love the show. I loved it for many, many reasons. I love the cameos. I love the fact that it did have, I don't know if you were going to talk about this. I felt it had a 3-act structure to it.
Yeah.
So like a nice drawn out film, and if that's the future of Star Wars series, more of it, please. But I mean, look, I'm splitting hairs here. The only thing I dislike about Andor is I just thought he was a very underdeveloped, and it was a very subpar, bland performance. But maybe that's his character. He doesn't say much.
I think that's it.
He didn't seem very passionate. He didn't seem very, or maybe he's complex.
I think he's the cipher that sort of like, he's the spark that, bizarrely, like and he's surrounded by more interesting characters. I was chatting to our friend Neil, who we did Wrath of Khan with, and we were chatting about, and I said, let's think about Luke Skywalker. He's a bit of a whiny character. He's surrounded by much more interesting characters like Han Solo and like that, but he's the hero. The action happens around him. And I think that's it. The most interesting people in this, you have Stellan Skateboard, you have,
I loved Mon Mothra. I think
Mon Mothra. You have, I can't remember what she's called, but
I even liked her husband, this slimy guy. He's an English actor. I can't remember what I've seen him in.
Yeah, no, I loved, I think, all the Mon Mothra stuff in terms of the politics and Andor's
the Rabble.
mum.
Yeah, and Andor's, well, she was in 4 Weddings. But I love the rabble that they have together. When they hit the bank, sorry, whatever it is, the payload.
The heist. Yeah, the heist
at the start. I liked all that, but yeah, it's just this weird thing. It's like, I don't know, maybe I'm comparing him. It's a generational thing, because I'm used to seeing actors do more with their face when they're not saying anything. I'm used to, whether it's Sean Connery, Michael Douglas, Harrison Ford, whatever is going on, they don't even be delivering dialogue. They could be looking scared or whatever, but I don't know. And also it's just weird. I just felt like the first 3 or 4 episodes, there was like, I reckon about 5 minutes of Cassian Andor walking, looking intensely at the camera, and nothing happened. And I'm like, they're world building. Give
Yeah.
them a chance. Give them a chance. But no, that's it. The rest of it is flawless. I love the build up. As I said to you, I liked how it's only since it's finished I've seen that there's a clear 3-act structure. I liked how much that they weren't impatient. Like we're looking at you, Boba Fett. They weren't impatient with this. You know, they were very subtle. And let's just skip to the end. I mean, it's a great finale. The whole funeral thing was very impressive, both acoustically and visually. Something I hadn't seen in Star Wars before.
Yeah, I think I would say one of the weaknesses, and when I described it to people, first thing I said was it's slow to start. It's a slow burner, but stick with it. And people like I talked to did do that, and they were like, "I'm so glad, yeah, you told me to stick with it," because I was ready by episode 2. I was ready to give up on it, but I'm so glad because it's amazing, and it does set the ground for those last few episodes in terms of that. On Ferrix, I think it's called, that the planet, the industrial planet, it sets up all that stuff that everyone's fighting for that community. And yeah, I think, you know, Star Wars is quite famously, you know, George Lucas was derided for his simplistic dialogue and clunky dialogue. I think this is probably the best written Star Wars we've ever got. There's some brilliant speeches. Again, you know, Stellan Skarsgård about what he's fighting for, what he sacrificed is a brilliant moment. You have the amazing Andy Serkis delivering some good speeches.
I loved all the Empire stuff. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, the bitchiness and bureaucraticness of the Empire. The fact they're all trying to screw each other over to get to be seen as the best and to get bend the ear of the admirals or whatever. And
the guy who is a bit like our uncle, whoever it is, who's talking to the really evil guy. He comes across. I love the bureaucracy, and apart from the color of white, it's very Death Star. You know, it's very like they're on a round table, and the Emperor's done this, and like you and I talked about this. There's one because we were like, because you and I both said the same thing. So, are any Jedi's going to turn up in this? Because Palpatine's around,
Vader's around. Yeah.
Who?
Vader's around.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's gonna that stuff. I think they've already brought him out of once, so in Obi-Wan. But Yoda's around, so Mace Windu technically.
But the thing is, I think that makes it better. You know, I think, and I think that's why the first couple of series, the first series of The Mandalorian worked so well, because it didn't bring in any legacy characters. It was, as I say, it was its own story with new characters, and I think that's the
what
best.
They're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do again. I think
that's the best thing about this. The fact is, it's just an interesting espionage, Cold War-esque thriller set in the world of Star Wars. And I heard someone saying, you know, you almost don't have to be a Star Wars fan to enjoy it, but obviously you get a lot out of it being a Star Wars fan.
Totally agree, and I think what's great is I hope they only do another 2 seasons.
They're only doing another one. They're doing like
perfect. I was going to say it doesn't need any more. There's not enough. Yeah. What can you do? Because you can see what's happening. And, you know, I think what they do a very good job of is the fact that, you know, they obviously try to do with Boba Fett, try to like, oh, there's like lots of stuff going on, but this really does sell the idea about the rebels, and like you can imagine where it's going is that the crux of the end of the next season will be the forming of the official forming of the Rebel Alliance. So there'll be stuff that happens, and you can see that it's starting to happen already. But it's weird. I watched Rogue One, and then I went back, and you've got sorry, I forget his name. Forrest Whitaker, who likes Stellan Skarsgård skateboard. Great, it's great. I love the scene with them together. It's like bandits in the rebellion, and
it's like it's the different shades of grey though. They're the extremists, and I think that's
the honor amongst thieves. You know, and it really comes through. And I was like, I would watch a series with just the two, watching a younger version of the two of them, like scrabbling about, fighting against the Empire. And that's very much, it's weird to go back and watch, you know, Rogue One and then to watch this, because it's like, okay, they've borrowed stuff, but it is the same people, isn't it? And it
it's Tony Gilroy is the writer, and he was
Adam Gilroy, isn't it, as well?
Dan Gilroy.
Dan Goyle. But just give them more stuff. Give them more stuff to do. I think. You could argue it's. I think there's elements of Star Wars that haven't been tapped into enough with the success of Rogue One, because I think a lot of people would agree it's probably one of the best Star Wars films made since the original trilogy. I would take another one shoved in between this and new. No, but they really end it where Vader's getting the plans, isn't there? Or maybe there's something in between. I'd say there's a gap between Star Wars and Empire. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching, but just give them something to do. Maybe it's not in this world. Maybe they could make sense of, not Ryan Johnson's, but the third. I didn't have a problem with The Last Jedi. I thought it was interesting where they went. It was just that they didn't sort things out in the third one. I think the third one.
Well, they just abandoned a lot of the stuff that Ryan Johnson had set up. But
we're not talking about those films. So George, Marvel, tell us about Marvel.
So Marvel.
Because I've tapped out since Endgame was my Endgame. I'm not willing to just go and shell out money to go and watch a bunch of stuff that I don't know. You could, some people probably understand my reasons. I loved Endgame, but this just seems like I'm being taken on another ride, if it were.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's my age, if it is superhero fatigue. As you say, Endgame was such a brilliant culmination. Finish. But I feel like all the films that followed we are now in phase 4.
Fuck off with your phases. I'm not a product launch.
Have been mostly disappointed. I think safe to say you and I, what came out last year, both really enjoyed Shang-Chi. Apart from the last 20 minutes when it's 2 CGI dragons fighting for reasons. So that was that. I think that was good, but I've gone back and since watched Black Widow, which is really average, mediocre, and completely unnecessary.
All I'm hearing when you say that is Mad Max Fury Road. Mediocre.
So the start of the year, there was Doctor Strange 2, Into the Multiverse of Madness. And as we've talked about on previous podcasts, we love, time travel. We love multiverse type stuff. And it had great potential. And Sam Raimi back doing a superhero movie, not since, he did the Spider-Man films. Well, he did the original.
All 3, yeah.
You did all 3, so 2 really good films and Spider-Man 3. Had real potential, but it's just such a meh film and so visually unexciting for something that should be visually outstanding. This is
strange. Yeah. Because I thought one of its saving graces was it was visually stunning, but it's not.
It's just wasted potential. It does have some cool bits in it, but overall, it's one of the weakest Marvel films I've seen. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Doctor Strange and Benedict Cumberbatch's portrayal. I do like Benny Batch and some stuff, but I'm not that overly keen. So
they lost me when they forced him to have an American accent. There was no need. And I tapped out the film. It's just like, oh, come on. It's a terrible, terrible American accent.
Yeah, he's a great actor, but it's a bit of an overworked accent. Anyway, next up in the timeline is Thor: Love and Thunder by Taika Waititi. I didn't see it at the cinema because as it works out in the UK, the Marvel films are only released for 6 weeks at the cinema, and then they're dumped on Disney Plus. So I was just like, I saw the reviews
story.
And I saw the reviews come in saying most people didn't enjoy Love and Thunder, that it was self-indulgent with some cringeworthy humor that didn't really work against some of the storytelling. And that's pretty much on the money. It feels like Taika Waititi's the sort of the fame and power and praise has gone to his head, and he's gone a little bit rogue. And there's just lots of these throwaway jokes, and whilst that worked in Ragnarok somewhat, and I thought Ragnarok is probably the best of the Thor films, it just doesn't work this time around, and it's a bit of a messy film. It feels like Christian Bale as the bad guy, he's doing his best Christian Bale intense acting, and it as a result feels like he's in a completely different film from everyone else.
Like that X-Men film with Oscar Isaacs, because I felt like he was in a different film to everybody else.
Well, yeah, that's a different story. that's a waste.
No, but I mean, so let's talk about Tycho. So that whatever it was, the what's one with Ryan Reynolds with Taika Waititi about the player?
Free Guy.
Did he direct that?
No, he's just
an actor in it.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just saying, I can imagine where I think maybe he is one of those people who his best stuff is behind him because he wasn't suited for fame. But I'd like to think that maybe he'll hear that and he'll go back to ground because he's done some great stuff.
He's done some great indie films. Obviously, What We Do in the Shadows is a great film, and I'm really enjoying the TV series that he's still producing. I'm not sure how much of it whether he writes for it anymore. But he is actually, jumping back, he is also attached to do a Star Wars film at some point. So whether that is still going to happen, who knows? But yeah, I feel that was a really disappointing movie. And then most recently we have Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Or until not, well, yeah, it is, I guess, forever. So I have not seen this film. I'd love to see it. Even though I disagree with them making it, but they had to make something, didn't they? They had to, even in tribute.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And I think that's what this film does best, is when it's honoring the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and they're treating it as the same way, that T'Challa has passed on as well. And I think that's some of the best bits of the film. There's some the villain of Namor and the underwater kingdom feels a little bit familiar because of Aquaman and also Avatar 2, which the trailer played before the film. And there's some cool action in it, but it's the same superhero thing. It's half an hour too long. They could have cut out plenty of subplots. They're setting up, TV shows for new characters. And I just felt the ending was a bit anticlimactic. So it's good, but it's not great. It's one of the better films that Marvel has done for this phase 4. And I say, some of the best stuff they do is all about, the dealing with grief and stuff like that. That was, tragically forced upon them.
Okay, so that's the Marvel Power Hour. Pick what you like. Other highlights this year. We're not going to talk about Top Gun Maverick because
we've covered that
in 2 episodes.
We've exhausted that.
We've done the original and the new film. I'd like to talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I'm not gonna, because George still hasn't seen it. But that's a highlight for me.
That's the multiverse film, because it came out around the same time as Doctor Strange. So, and everyone's saying, if you see one multiverse film, go and see Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Links back to another big love of George and I's. If you haven't checked them out already, check out our Best of Bond. Because Michelle Yeoh is proving her chops in terms of acting, and that she's a lovely presence to watch on film. And I mean that with the highest amount of respect. It's like you see, without spoiling anything, every single different facet of her, and it's amazing. And it's like it's an amazing portfolio piece, and I'm very happy she's done it, and I hope she gets her own vehicle. I would like to think that after a film like this, let's see how it does. Let's see if it gets picked up at all in Oscars for, I don't know what it might get, but let's hope, if not, the year ahead, she maybe gets her own. I just think we see so much for in this film. Maybe she gets her own vehicle and they say, you know what, do something different. You've shown
she's just getting her own, they're doing a spin-off of The Witcher that she's headlining. So she's getting her own TV series.
Okay, I'm happy. Let's move on. So what else could we cover? Well, we've also, in terms of reviewing, this is us just like telling you what episodes to check out. Grey Man, go check it out. We covered it. And Sounds Like Grey, but it's not the same, is a big highlight of mine for this year, and a big film for George and I generally. Episode 3 of the podcast was Predator, and it was Prey this year. What an amazing film. But we're not going to talk about that. But that was a highlight of 2022. So, and
also the Batman we covered. So all of the recent releases we have covered that Charlie's talked about. So Top Gun, Maverick, the Batman, the Grey Man, the Prey Man, the
Prey Man, the Batman, the Prey Woman, the Everything Everywhere Woman.
They're all on Patreon. So if you're interested in hearing what Charlie and I have to say about recent movies, more recent stuff in further detail, please check those out.
Okay, so to tie this up into a nice, pretty bow, should we talk about what you're currently watching? It is December. Do you want to talk about any other streaming things? I'm very much enjoying The Peripheral, which once again, I don't think George has started, but like in terms of reviewing 2022, it's a highlight. It's on Amazon. It's good. I think George was telling me, even though he hasn't seen it, George being George, he knows what's going on, where it came from. It's from the makers of Westworld, right? And it's
yes, I believe so. Lisa Joy, I think it is, like one of the showrunners there. Yeah,
and it's already making more sense than any of Westworld did. So,
well, that looks interesting. Some of the best stuff that I've been watching, I'm trying to think if it was this year, but ironically, is some of the stuff that's been on Disney Plus, the grown-up stuff again. So I'm not sure if Dope Sick was released this year, but I thought Dope Sick was fantastic.
This year. That was great. That was some performance from Michael Keaton. Yeah, brilliant.
So I think that's some of the best, most gripping TV since Chernobyl. And also, I think I enjoyed it more than you did, but I thought The Dropout was really good, about the whole Theranos Elizabeth.
I'm just really unhappy with her. And it's weird because I talk about this with Louise and she just did get indicted. I think she's been done. But I just have a real problem with her. I think when I watched the show, I was like, they're making a show. I don't know. It's just like there was so much potential. And what's great is, without spoiling anything, they hit the nail on the head. Well, I mean, you've seen it or you haven't seen it, but like, it's just a real shame what she did for female entrepreneurs of that age all around the world. It's like a real shame what she did. And I don't think they touch on it in the series, but I think she gets off too lightly in it. I think they don't zero in on how responsible she was. It's like, so, but Netflix, it was Netflix.
No, it was Disney. It was Fox.
Disney picked it up. Yeah. As my friend Fraser and Paramount tells us, it's like they're all made independently. It's like it's highest bidder stuff. There's very rarely when you see Apple original, Amazon original, Netflix original.
Yeah,
they're all independents, and it's highest bidder stuff. It's very rarely that they actually get behind them from the beginning. So yeah. But no, I thought it was. I watched the whole thing. It was interesting to see our friend Michael Ironside, big Michael Ironside in that. There's some great cameos in that.
Yeah, William H. Macy.
It's gripping.
Yeah, there's some. I thought that was really good. And then on the lighter side of stuff, the second series. Well, watch them both now, but Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and Martin Short.
I haven't watched the second series, but I love the first one.
Oh, have you seen the first one now? Because I wasn't sure if you'd seen it.
I haven't got on to. I thought, or maybe we watched a first episode, but
I mean, who would have thought that we enjoy a film about podcasting? But no, it's brilliant.
Just give me more Martin Short and Steve Martin together.
Exactly, they've got such a good chemistry. There's so many great one-liners. It's a real joy to watch. So yeah, I can't, like, for comedy stuff, I think check out Only Murders in the Building. It's
you're not gonna. All I'd like to say about that is you're not gonna see Steve Martin on the stage anytime soon. This is the closest you're gonna see, and his writing is gold. Not since Bowfinger have we seen this sort of this cynicism. This, I don't know. I just love how he portrays it. It's shot beautifully. Apart from leaving every episode wanting to go out and buy an Apple device, I've got no complaints about it. But no, it's every single item, technological device in that is Apple. But other than that, it's great.
And it makes podcasting very glamorous. It isn't, but
I love the bit where he's like, they're standing left and right of him, and he does the talking, and he's talking into a microphone, and
on a stage.
And then it's dramatized.
Yeah.
So that's been 2022. I don't think there's anything really to look forward to in 2023 apart from John Wick 4 is coming. There's more Indiana Jones.
Mission Impossible.
Spider-Verse. There's tons of stuff coming, and that's unfortunately all of those exciting blockbustery type stuff that we like on Retro Ramble. It won't come until we've got through all the very serious intellectual. We're making this film very serious and intellectual just to get an Oscar. Until we've got past that, the very clever people making the very clever, heartfelt films. Until we've got past that phase, we're not going to get the silly stuff.
Well, no, we have got Abada.
Avatar! That's Christmas, right?
Yeah, we've got Avatar 2 is coming up, and we'll be covering that on a recent Ramble on Patreon as well. So if anyone can do a successful sequel, it's James Cameron. So
I think it's going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to it. And we have hit at the time of recording, we have hit episode 100. Can we say that, George? Does it make sense? I might need to edit it out. So please be sure to check it out. It only took us 100 episodes, but we've got our dear neighbors, the Glendinings, the John and James, the guys that got us into this, that we've watched so many films that made this,
shaped us who we are with our film knowledge and our film education.
Yeah, so we got them on. We're covering Christmas Vacation, the National Lampoons, the Chevy Chase, the family films that we love from many years ago. So be sure to check that out. It was great to have them on, and I'm sure we'll have them on again. So that has been the year 2022. I hope you survived it, and I hope you're looking forward to 2023. George, anything else you want to mention before we sign off?
Thank you for all your support over the past year. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the comments. It really does mean a lot to us. Charlie and I really enjoy doing this, but it really, really cheers us up when we see some nice words, and we see that, people getting joy out of it as well. So, we like to know that we're doing something good.
Well, especially you Patreon guys, giving us the comments, giving us the ideas, and making us feel like we've got a bit more of a community.
Yeah, so no, it's a big thank you to all the listeners and all the people that cheer us on. It does mean a lot. We love doing this, and we're going to keep on doing it. So we've got some big stuff lined up for 2023, some big classic movies to cover. But as always, if there is a favorite film of yours that we have yet to cover, get in touch, let us know.
Wonderful. Okay, brilliant. Well, for this episode, I've been Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
And we'll see you next time or next year. But thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.